Constructed circa 1840 and serving Cutchogue school children till the early 1900s, the old schoolhouse is typical of the form with its center entry door at one end and row of evenly spaced windows along the sides. The one-room schoolhouse is a familiar sight to travelers on the North Fork, as it is in other rural areas around the country. For small, relatively isolated farming communities, the compact schoolhouse accommodated students of all ages, with the older children being expected to assist the schoolmaster with instructing the younger ones. The old schoolhouse is arranged with 2 rows of desks and a pot-bellied stove which still provides heat during the holiday programs. Display cases exhibit school-related objects such as lunch pails, slates, and early textbooks, while the council's important collection of Native American artifacts is on display as well. The Indian relics were collected by local farmers a century ago while plowing fields that had once been occupied by the Cutchogues, one of the several tribes that occupied Long Island before the arrival of the whites in the 1640s. Unlike the Shinnecocks of the South Fork, however, the Cutchogues had dwindled in number and no longer presented an obstacle to settlement. Their fort, one of the only examples yet to be discovered by archaeologists, remains in evidence on the outskirts of town. The schoolhouse is arranged internally so that students seated in rows face toward the schoolmaster, whose chalkboards occupy the end wall above an elevated platform. Strict attention was expected, although in all likelihood rarely achieved. The tall windows were designed intentionally to admit lots of light and fresh air, both considered healthful influences on the learning process. One of the most interesting objects on display is a photograph taken at the reunion of local Cutchogue residents who gathered in 1964 after the schoolhouse was moved to the village green. Many of the elderly residents in that picture also appear in a photograph taken in the 1890s of students standing out front of the schoolhouse on a sunny day, almost 70 years later. After the schoolhouse was replaced with a larger one in the early 1900s, it was moved to a nearby farm field where it served for many years as a tenant farmer's dwelling. In the 1960s, it was moved again and now stands across the main road from its original location. Today, visitors can observe how school was taught in the 1800s and imagine what life was like for the children of that time.